The Two-Wheel Power Hour Motorcycle Show is brought to you by R.L. Lipton Distributing, distributors of Budweiser, Bud Light, and Bud Select. Budweiser, the king of beers, reminds you to always drink responsibly. By Matthias BMW Cycle Sales. By Golan's Honda of Youngstown and Ray Golan's Honda Suzuki of Warren. Putting motorcycles on the road since 1931. And by Warren Harley Davidson, the area's best selection of Harley-Davidson motorcycles and apparel, and the Tri-State's volume dealer, Andrew Cycles, the Motorcycle and ATV Superstore, Route 62 in Salem.
Going down that long, lonesome highway, bound the plain.
There were many of us who grew up in the late 60s when motorcycling was magical and when it was in its golden era. We were young, adventurous, and hadn't really started down the career path of commitments, from family, the home, the kids, the education for the kids, and just about all those things that would be waiting for us in just a few short years. But right now, it was our time, and it was 1969. We had our bikes, and that's all we needed. The call of the open road beckons us. Some of us got a chance to heed the call, and others had to live the dream of traveling across America vicariously through the eyes of Jim Bronson in the hit TV series Then Came Bronson. It's my pleasure to welcome to the Two-Wheel Power Hour veteran actor and singer Michael Parks, who brought the Jim Bronson character to life each and every week. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Larry. Thank you.
Hey,
well, why did you cut that guy off that was singing?
Oh, I'll tell you what. We have that whole thing. You want to hear some more?
No. Just kidding you.
I'll tell you what. I love listening to that, and it just takes me right back. It's like a time machine, Michael.
They wanted me to do the Bob Dylan's Mr. Tambourine Man, and I said, well, this guy's not a doper. It was an obvious song about dope. So they said, what do you want to do? I said, I think of something. So I called Jim Henry. I said, I'll record something tomorrow, and he wrote it in the back seat on the way down to the studio from Ojai.
Is that right?
Yeah, he wrote the song. We called James. He met us, and we recorded it.
Well, I had a double of a time tracking you down, and the first time I had a chance to talk to you, it was like everything I thought it would be. A cool dude, interested in what I had to say because I was interested in what he had to say. So I'd like to just get into the interview and ask you a couple of questions. I know there's a lot of people.
Couple?
Well, as much as you
waiting for this phone call is like being on death row and with your last meal, whether you eat it or not. If you called me at any time without telling me, it'd been great.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah, but this thing beans or something, but
nah, you'll cruise to this thing. It's not a problem at all. There's nothing that's life-shattering or anything about it. But
why not?
We're not a earth-shattering kind of show. We're just like a bunch of guys that like motorcycling, and occasionally we get a chance to relive the past. But let's just say it's early 1969 or maybe late 1968. How about telling us how you found out and auditioned for the show?
Well, I didn't audition. There was a casting director, was an actor just before we acted together, and he directed me, and he was a casting director. The guy head of the studio said, Screen Gym said, I need an actor, a good actor for this part. He said, well, I know one. He said, can he ride a motorcycle? That was most important to him. He said, yeah, he lives on one. So they called me in, and gave me the script, and I read it, and I turned it down twice. And then the third time, he said, what's wrong? I said, the writing, So he said, well, do what you want with it, improv. So we did, the pilot. And it wasn't easy, but it was fun.
Well, what was it like to work with some of the actors and actresses that were in the show? Now, many of them were up and coming, either were stars or would eventually become stars. People like Keenan Wynn, Kurt Russell,
good guy.
Martin Sheen, Sherry North, Penny Marshall, Dabby Coleman, and my favorite, I still love this girl, Jessica Walters.
Oh, yeah, sure.
What was it like to work with those people?
Well, they were always wonderful. The actors were always wonderful, and most of the directors were fantastic. And the cameraman was a teddy bear, Lamar Boren.
Uh-huh.
But
well, we're going to talk about him in a little bit, too.
Yeah, there was Bud Thackeray, who was an old cameraman I knew for years. He said, who's doing the show, kid? I said, Lamar Boren. He said, And Lamar did Sea Hunt.
That's right.
So he said, yeah, the only cameraman ever photographed flatulence. I mean,
he also did Thunderball, the
he did a lot of different
007 movie.
Yeah, like Russ Meddy, a cameraman too. He did different stuff.
How much influence did you have on the subjects and issues that then came Bronson?
Oh my God, it was a horrible battle on that end. But I just rolled along, with the punches. And you mentioned Kurt, who was
Kurt Russell.
Yeah, did a brilliant job on Elvis. And I knew Elvis, pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
And he kicked on it. He was really good. We worked together on a...
Well, I've got a little thing a little later on about Kurt and you, and it was kind of interesting. But one of the fans from around the country sent me an email. His name was Bill Gibson, and he pointed out a couple of very interesting things which I wanted to bring up, and that's why I asked you about how much influence you had on the subjects and the issues, because I truly believe, and so does Bill, that this series was way ahead of its time. It addressed topics like Native Americans and the mistreatment of them, people's perceptions of African Americans, health issues like autism. Now, autism has just started to come to the forefront in the last few years as far as health issues and that, and becoming much more visible. But even you guys took a stab at the jocks. You take a look at the Spitball Kid and how, well, you don't have to do anything if you can play ball. You just got a job. So how are these topics selected? Because now when we look back on them, it really put this show way ahead of its time.
Yes, some were good ideas. I mean, there were some good ideas and some good dialogue. In fact, there were 3 or 4 shows that were excellent.
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't have to, intervene or do anything at all. And I never really did. I was always asked, and which is really how they blindside you as your reputation. If you'll listen.
Absolutely.
New York Times came out. I won't say his name, but I want to dignify him. And he stayed about 3 or 4 days. Now, the director would always confer, ask me to come over, and I'd always be glad to with the actors and get their input. Blah, blah. And so he's watching all this, and then one day the cameraman, Lamar, says, hey, kid, to me, come here. So I was a big guy, a wonderful guy. He said, how about this? And I looked through, and he got a wonderful shot on a 250 lens. I said, whoa, that's beautiful, Lamar. So I went back and sit down. So now the article comes out in the New York Times, says Michael Parks calls the shots and everything. Even the cameraman has to have his opinion. The way Michael wants to get. I just wanted to kill him, and I said, well, I'll forgive you once, But anyway, that happens in interviews, and you're forewarned.
Yeah, sure. Well, which really makes this interview with me, a guy you don't know from Adam, special because, you took a chance on me, and you could have just as easily have blown me off or burned me tonight and not even been on there. But, it's really special that you would do this.
One guy said I voted for Wallace in an interview. Then it came out later because at the time I asked for retraction in the magazine. He said, we don't do retraction.
Oh,
the agent says to me, one of those old, this too shall pass. Well, they never saw the Internet. Now on the Internet, my wife finds, not only did I vote for him, I campaigned for him. This is added to it, know.
In my opening monologue, I talked about the feeling, of the time, the era, the magic of it all.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the lasting impact the character of Jim Bronson had on a lot of the people to this very day? Look at those clubs.
One time, this guy asked me to come up and sign autographs up in Sacramento. Lots of people, and he was right. And he paid me so much. You make a fortune doing it. Now people do, I know. I mean, I don't do it, but at the time I did. It was a guy named Bagdasarian.
Really?
So, yeah. So I went up and they said, here's your table. And I go to the table, and there's a line all the way around the building. And there are sisters, convents, Catholic, dressed in the habit. There are little kids. There are old people. There are Hell's Angels. And one of them came up to me and tried to get in front of me. I said, hey, man, you know me, Big Phil from... I said, yeah, I do, Phil, but you got to go to the back, where you were.
Yeah. That's cool.
You better have a beer, he says. I said, okay, I'll have a beer later.